of women captains in Europe wouldn't even feel a Boeing 747. Despite this, as we all know, there is an industry shortage of pilots. More precisely, an estimated 804,000 pilots are needed to meet the demand by 2038. So we need to train 804,000 pilots in 16 years. Well, something is not right, right? Why are there so few women in aviation? Well, here are a couple of reasons that came up in my research. Inadequate female pilot visibility, not enough female pilots in popular culture, cost of flight training, flexibility working policies to meet the needs of women, preconceptions about female pilots in the aviation industry, and it turns out that some female pilots were actually mistaken for flight attendants. Women have to prove themselves more than men. And interestingly enough, the Federal Aviation Administration's Women in Aviation Advisory Board published a report about 2 months ago. And this report is interesting because of 3 reasons. One, it points out to male-dominated culture, widespread harassment and discrimination, financial barriers to career entry, and a lack of gender-specific support system. These are some of the reasons why they explain the underrepresentation of women in aviation. But it also says that the starkest gender gaps are in senior leadership positions and among professional pilots and maintenance technicians. And final, it also says that the underrepresentation of women in aviation impacts the industry's advancement, effectiveness, and safety. Well, we'll ask our panelists to share their views on this problem. But where does it start? Well, apparently the problem appears to start from education and awareness at an early age. Girls are not as engaged in STEM subjects as boys, despite having the same level of aptitude for them. Key to attract more girls and women to the industry long-term and encourage them to stay is to offer younger girls opportunities to explore aviation occupations and support them in their career journey discovery. FAA report says, quote, girls may not realize that careers in aviation are available to them, often due to a lack of visibility and awareness gap due to insufficient key influencers, including parents and teachers. Well, that's not great, right? However, something must help women advance in their careers. Well, it turns out that social media is a useful tool, and some female pilots maintain active social media to share people insights into their lives as pilots. And in fact, we'll find out from one of our panelists how this works. Mentorship programs via private Facebook groups, industry conferences that enable female pilots to connect, scholarship, tuition assistance, presentations delivered to schools by training organizations, international organizations that raise awareness about aviation opportunities. So, in a nutshell, something is happening, but clearly not enough. Well, our panelists have broken the boundaries to forge a successful career in aviation and aerospace. Together, we may find interesting and useful answers on how to encourage more women to embrace this profession worldwide. So with that, I'd like to turn to our panelists. To my immediate left, Dr. Shefali Juneja. You bring a rich practical and theoretical knowledge in aviation. You are a speaker, published writer on issues affecting aviation. You are chief bilateral air service negotiator for India for 6 years. You helped transform the bilateral air service negotiations by implementing open skies. You are the immediate past chairperson of ICAO, Council on Small Group on Gender, and you represent India at ICAO. So, what are your views on how to improve the gender equality in aviation?
So thank you so much, and it's really a pleasure to be here and to speak in this fora on women in aviation. So I think we need to address what we have in hand. We're looking at transforming Saudi Arabia. We have a vision for 2030. How is it going to be possible? We are looking at women. Is it possible without women? I don't think so. And therein lies our strength. It is basically to get more and more women into this profession. And this aviation sector has always been looked upon as more male-dominated, thinking, that men are better at machines. And as you mentioned about pilots, but that's just a silhouette, when you actually come to what women can do if they have the professional qualifications. I think the sky is the limit. And today we have women being missile women, we have them being fighter pilots, we have them going into space. So it's just, the right orientation, the right professional qualifications, and acceptance of oneself, that one should have a confidence in whatever I want, I can achieve. I think that is something which is the key thing in my mind. And the problem that exists is something which we need to tackle, and we need to tackle it together, because clearly we really don't know how much more talent is there on the other side, which is just not being brought into the aviation. So these are a few of my opening words. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, engineer Michelle. You are a Saudi American aerospace engineer, aerospace entrepreneur, commercial pilot, speaker. You founded Michelle Aerospace at age 26 to pursue your ultimate dream of building rockets. You are also an influencer and perfected your show and tell via social media in the hope of encouraging women to pursue careers in aerospace and aviation. So, does it work? And what really matters for you in your profession?
First of all, thank you so much, and I'm honored to be here among the esteemed guests, the panelists and guests as well. I think so. There's two issues that we're dealing with: is entering the market and then retention in the market. Because some people will enter, but then they'll be like, "Oh, this is not the right environment for me. Ciao," and then they would leave. And that's an issue, because that has happened, and I've seen it in engineering with my own eyes at work. So the idea here is you want an influx, a larger volume of women to enter the market, and you want to create an environment that sustains whatever it is that's keeping them, to keep them in, as opposed to for them to be like, oh, this is not really for me. So those two issues, if you can tackle those, you would, over time, I don't think you can do it like this, gradually be able to retain and introduce. Because if one woman tries to shed light in terms of having visibility, like, hey guys, we actually are capable of doing these, being one-on-one with guys and being able to be pilots, not just second officers, we can be the captain and so forth. They will start to see that, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's the whole point of using social media. I use social media particularly for that. One, to show everybody that I have a very strong passion for flying. Like, I love it, and you can see it through my eyes. And I feel like the happiest when I'm flying. When they see that, they have this like influx of positive energy that makes them think, wait a minute, she looks really happy. I want to feel that way. So I'm like, yeah, what? It doesn't hurt. Just go on a discovery flight. You never know. They will enter into that market. That's the whole purpose. I'm using social media to showcase, like, if I can do it, you can do it. If I can take 1 hour out of my time to go explore something new, you can definitely do it. And then once you plant that seed of curiosity and passion for something, you will surely have a higher influx. So imagine if whatever I do, and then someone else does the same thing, they showcase how they feel about flying or aviation or being a mechanic and so forth. It will really change the perspective, and it will give that visibility needed for them to enter that market. I think those are the ways that one can tackle this issue and try to bring in and retain people.
Super. Well, we're moving on to Maribel. Maribel, you bring over 20 years of sales, marketing, communication, and commercial experience in Europe and Latin America in airline and hospitality industry. Prior to this, you spent 11 years in the aviation industry. You gained extensive experience in all aspects of commercial aviation, managing the introduction of low-cost airline operations into the southern European markets. So, what was your biggest challenge in building a successful multi-industry career? You seem to have straddled aviation, airline, hospitality, so give us some nuggets of...
Thank you for inviting me. It's very exciting to share this floor with amazing women and with men. And thank you for joining this conversation, because we are no one if the other half of the population is not together helping us to achieve our goals. I'd like to tell you before we move into aviation and your actual question that 54% of the people that work in the travel and tourism industry, including aviation, are women. But only 5% has top management roles. So why? And this why is something we have been looking after and trying to find the response to this question. Basically, there is something which you just described, which is showcasing the passion of doing something. Yes, you can do it. So empowering women to be able to do so by sharing best practices, examples, engaging with them. Visibility is a must. If we are not here talking about it and we are not stepping up and putting our voice there, probably you would have never thought about it. So there is a lot of things we can do together to achieve. in my particular case, I have moved from tourism, from aviation to tourism. I never felt in my life that I needed to do something. But one day I realized that yes. So we do things normally, naturally. We think that, there is a man there, which is the CEO, and it's like normal, it's for granted. And I don't blame them. I don't blame the men. No, it's because, we are playing in a field that was created by men, and women are playing there, and we have not the same tools. So it's just, let's flex the tool, let's adapt those tools and play together, And that is very funny. And I like to do, everything we do together with my colleagues. For example, if a woman, you are asking to someone, this is the job description to become a pilot or to become an engineer, whatever, in one company. And you say, oh my God, out of 5, I have only 4, I won't apply for it. If you say that to a man, it's like, oh, out of 5, I have 2, I can get it. Which is amazing. It's great. We need to just copy that. Why not? We should be, empowered and confident, because there is a little bit of, knowledge, but the other bit is like practices and learning, and we need to all together work in that direction. It's what I did. I just, changed my career from one part to the other. I'm very happy. And as you said, the sky is the limit, so we have to share that with our colleagues. Thank you.
So basically lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg would say. Elaine, let's ask you a couple of questions. Elaine, you have over 30 years of experience across a wide spectrum of aviation and airport-related businesses in both the public and private sectors. You have led in bilateral and multilateral air service and climate change negotiations. You serve as the representative of Singapore on the Council of ICAO. I'm sure you have witnessed in major industry milestones in your long career. However, there must have been moments in which you felt it's just too hard to stay the course. So my question to you is, what motivated you to persevere?
Actually, when you asked me that question before the session, I was thinking quite hard that I thought I would have an answer for you. But actually, I don't. I had an amazing 30 years in aviation, in both public and private sector. And I must say, I've been through different portfolios, and they've all been very exciting. So challenges, as it comes with all jobs, nothing I would say that's extraordinary. But I would say that 30 years in the earlier part of my career, I would say that women are not that common in the industry as compared to now. We have a lot more. The only surprises is when you send emails and all people don't get the idea that you're a woman, but when they see you and they say, you're a woman? And say, yeah, I think so. and so, but they find it difficult to identify why a woman will be in aviation. And I put it maybe through to gender stereotypes. We have, I'm sure a lot of you drive, and then when you see a terrible driver on the road, you say, oh, it must be a woman driver, right? How many of you or your father, your husband will say that? And I think subconsciously that must have gotten into the minds. In fact, we did we carried out a survey on gender gap in Singapore with regards to STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics field. And this came out as one of the factors that actually is preventing women from being in aviation from the technical perspective. So in Singapore, I think I have been quite fortunate that our foundational principle is meritocracy. So everyone has equality in terms of access to education and jobs, because we are short of resources, and therefore we need every resources we can get, and women forms a very important resource for the Singapore economy. But so in the civil aviation itself, management, 53% of women are in management, which is a very high number, but I really give it to the foundational principle of meritocracy. But for the technical areas, we are still lagging very much behind, 30% in air traffic controllers and 20% for aeronautical engineers. So this is an area we really need to focus on, and it is important if we are looking at the future of aviation, where innovation and technology will play a very big part in this. So it was quite interesting in the study we did with McKinsey, actually. And they found out that gender stereotypes is the one that's hindering women. And this can be dangerous from the social perspective. I don't know how many of us know that when they first invented airbags for cars, it killed women and children. Because if it was very male-dominated engineers that designed the airbags, so it was suitable for men, but not women and children. And so it's important from the diversity point of view to have women like Michelle. So thank you very much for taking out the challenge in the technical field to provide that diversity, I think, for the future of aviation.
Absolutely. That certainly is the future. Dana, your career revolves around environmental matters. You led important national environmental projects, and at GACA, you acted as environmental manager in charge of the national implementation of CORSIA. You are currently assigned to the ICAO permanent representation of Saudi Arabia as an alternate representative. My question to you is, how did your environmental background lead you to your current work in aviation?
First, I would like to thank you for having me on this panel. These are an amazing women that I look up to, absolutely, and it's quite an honor to be sitting next to them. As for your question, I would like to say that, you were talking before about, girls looking at things and they think they want to do it, and they when they were small and they grow up to be whatever they want. And the thing is that environmental and aviation was never in my mind as a child or as I was growing up. Not because it wasn't in my reach, it's just because I lived in a household that told me I could do anything I wanted. But more because I thought I wanted to be a magician, but that's beside the point. But the thing is that I went to environmental, and I discovered I loved environmental, and I did amazing things with the Ministry of Economy and Planning, and at the time when Saudi was pushing for everything, pushing for Vision 2030, pushing for more environment, pushing for more everything. And after we did quite a few projects, national projects, I wanted a new adventure. And I knew I could do it because I was raised to know that I could do it. And I think that a lot of households, that's how they should be teaching their children too. And when the opportunity that came to go to GACA, actually, it was easy because that's also part of what Saudi was doing. It was pushing everything. They're pushing for more female representation everywhere, including air traffic controllers, because we wanted to do more of the large pool of women so that they can, some of them can go into managerial positions and everything. So it was kind of like a new adventure and a path towards the environment in aviation, which I had to learn on the spot, obviously, because there wasn't really opportunity to go into that for schooling. So, and then the management really saw what any man in the last 100 years would have been seen as, like, good at, that they should go to this because they're good, and it's regardless of gender. So I was chosen to go to the representation. I've been working with these two lovely ladies for a year and a half now, and it's been an amazing journey.
Fantastic. Basically, no idea is better than the idea whose time has come. So Saudi has opened up right at the time that you were thinking of what to do. Exactly. So here you are. Well, we will now switch to a couple of questions, a discussion among our panelists. So, Dr. Shefali, I have a very specific question for you. Because India is the leading country in terms of percentage of female airline pilots, basically 12.4%. Remember, I mentioned in my remarks there was 5%, where India is clearly almost more than double. In fact, its regional airlines display the most gender equality from the perspective of percentage of female pilots, more specifically 13.9%, compared to 6.4% world average. So the question too is, what does India do right that other countries can learn from?
So that's a very, very interesting question, and something I would love to answer. Of course, it doesn't have one single answer. There are a couple of reasons why India has done so well as far as women pilots are concerned. So first of all, India has always had a very liberal policy towards women. Government of India has encouraged women to take up all kind of professions. We have women pilots in Navy, in the Air Force, in the paramilitary, in commercial aviation. So they came up, the first commercial pilot was in 1947, the year we became independent. That's when we had the Deccan Airlines come in. Of course, it was Air India which really patronized women pilots, and there was this lady, Deborah Banerjee, who became first commercial pilot in Air India, and she became an icon. And that is where I want to underline the feeling of sisterhood. You know, she was respected, and how she kind of nurtured a whole lot of women to become commercial pilots. She supported them when they initially thought whether they can do them or not do them. And then she formed an association, that is the Indian Pilots Association, which became like a kind of a mentorship for young girls who were thinking of coming in. But I think the biggest kick, to women coming in commercial aviation came when the low-cost airlines came in India. And India's aviation market is like growing with a double digit, and so they needed more and more pilots, and more women got attracted to becoming pilots, because in India we have equal pay for equal rank here. So they have very strong unions. The pilots are bound by the number of hours they put in, the number of the seniority. So they became commanders for 787, 777. So we have all women flights, specially organized by Air India on International Women's Day every year. In fact, we have women engineers and air traffic controllers actually guiding, these transatlantic flights. So that made it possible for more and more women to be, get into commercial pilot, as well as it was also a fact that the Indian society, we have a very family-oriented system. So the pilot's life is not easy, and many of you are pilots here. You are traveling, and if supposing you are a woman and you have a family, so it is the family support that was given by parents, by in-laws, as well as by other help that is available in India, that made it possible for women to take up commercial pilot on a very big scale. And there's no doubt about it that today they are very well accepted as not only co-pilots, but as well as also as commanders. They are flying all kinds of aircrafts, and in fact, Indian women are clearly going on to new roles. We have a missile woman, a woman which is in charge of a missile program. So that is how we've gone. And I think that whole lot of complex factors that have helped it happen. I hope
Sound that way. So we hope that government representatives in the audience or listening online have taken note that India really provides support across the board at the societal level, personal level, influencers. So that seems to be the recipe for success. So questions to anyone on the panel. What questions should we be asking in order to really smooth the path forward for women in aviation? Anyone like to answer? Michelle?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things that I would like to do is an international survey of all women, young, and like different age groups. If we do a survey to try to understand their propensity to get into the aviation, and then ask them the questions, what do you think are the obstacles in your way? Then we can get a clear understanding for the ones that are not in the field, what their view is and what their perception is, because their perception is their reality. So what we need to do is understand where they're coming from and try to really focus on those obstacles that they're discussing, and try to change that, to tell them, no, these are not your obstacles. We will work with you to make sure that you do enter, that these are limits that you're putting on yourself as opposed to realistic limits. Because this is the reality. If you grow in a home where your parents are constantly telling you, you can't do this is a male's job. You can't do this, you need to have children. You can't do this because of whatever. you're innately, even if you don't believe them, you know, if you take a rock and constantly drop little droplets of water, eventually there's going to be a hole. So whether you want it or not, once that limit is set in someone's mind, you have to change that from somebody in the industry that says, nope, this is an obstacle that is an illusion. It's not there. And here's how we're going to help you get to where you need to go. I think that's very important for us to understand the perception of the women that want to get in but cannot get in.
I'm very
Maribel.
supportive of what you are saying, Michelle. I think we need to work in three directions. One is the academia. We need to really understand, and for that, this international survey or understanding what should be done there to be able to engage the little ones, you know, and accompany them throughout the entire journey. Then we need to talk to the private sector. What is the plan? What the companies are doing to empower women, to support them? And it's not only about mentoring. It's not about coaching. It's about having a sponsorship for those women to raise and to improve and to go throughout. And then there is another thing which is maybe a little bit more like politically incorrect, which is the government side. Quotas or not quotas? Okay, this is a big debate, but if you don't force a little bit the machine, we have to wait. And I tell you how many years. The World Economic Forum has released this March. So if we wait till naturally, you know, we have replacements, it's like 145 years when women will reach the gender balance. Last year was 95 years. So COVID and pandemic has delayed this process. So I'm sorry, I don't have 145 years. I don't know what about you. I'm telling you I'm not. So not funny, but you know, we need to do things about it. And these areas of collaboration, of working together are really, really important. We have an association that we created separate from my current job, which is Women Leading Tourism. And we created that to force this agenda, to sort of like push it a little bit. And one of the things that we identified very important is the visibility, having those role models that, you know, you could be one of the ideal, no? Like, you know, she can, we can, why don't we do it? Sharing all those best practices for them to really know. As well, media, they need to really recognize. You cannot have a picture of only 10 men there standing up because they have achieved something. If you are not pointing out that there is no women, why? Not naming about inclusivity and diversity, just even gender balance. So media is very important. You know, research studies, having a plan, a route to go through, that is very important. So, but anything of the things we are discussing here wouldn't be possible if we are not doing that together. My perspective is should be really inclusive. We have to do this with our colleagues, with our families, with our husbands, with our children, you know, because individually we are no one. And now with COVID we saw that if there is no collaboration, there is nothing we can do alone. And in this particular case, even more importantly. So that's my view.
So in other words, show up and push boundaries. Dana.
And it kind of ties with what you were saying too. And my question would be, how can we normalize women in aviation? And to normalize it, I mean the 10 to 15 step process of every single person in our society, from government all the way down to a new parent. How can we normalize that? Yeah, it's okay for women to go into aviation. Something that would be like, hey, parents, instead of just giving the boy the toy plane, you give it to the kid. Normalize in education, in advertising. Actually, when you put some pilots on the TV, you put different genders of pilots, and the continuation of it. And sometimes people say, "Oh, it's such a big concept, such a big job." But in the end, every one thing that you do to normalize it will help. And definitely at the top, we've got government. Like Saudi Arabia has actively went, okay, you need to employ women here. This percentage. This specific job, okay, it needs to be for women because women are buying from there. So I believe it's just from top to bottom, completely. Top to bottom and bottom to top, all of it.
There we go. Elaine?
Yeah, so I fully agree with what the panelists have said. In fact, the survey that I mentioned earlier suggested two things. One is motivation, as Dr. Shafali has said. And so in Singapore, we've set up this aviation, Women in Aviation International, to mentor women in the aviation sector. So you have senior people who are in the field, mentor new young women in the profession to see how best to help them adjust, accommodate, and address to help them with their career. The other one is removing barriers, which is one, of course, is the gender stereotype that I mentioned before. And it's like what Michelle said also, that's for men, it's not for women. In fact, the reason why we did the study is because in fact, women actually do, in the education, do actually take up STEM, and they do very well. In fact, they taught the STEM better than men in some occasions. But we see that they mainly go into medical field, doctors and the radiologists or physiotherapists, but very few in aviation. And we were trying to understand why is there a misconnect. In fact, some of them go into aeronautical engineering, but when they graduate, they go into the financial sector because Singapore is a financial hub. Because it's much easier, and because of the barriers that women is not as good as men. So they feel like they have to fight harder. So removing that perception through regular conversation, communication, but I think action to really remove the barriers. And here I think of what the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has done. When she became the Prime Minister, she had a child. She brought it to the UN, right? Never before had it been done. But I think these are artificial barriers that have been created, and we need people to break these barriers. And I really urge, I'm very glad to see so many men in this room, because a lot of you are in a senior position, leadership position. Likewise for women, I think we need to seriously be very aware of these barriers and how we can remove them consciously, because of the gender stereotype, like what I mentioned about women are bad drivers, right? So it's a collective action, and really look forward to also the men contributing and participating in this effort.
Well, it looks like basically networking, mentorship, scholarship, they all matter, but is there one in particular that you think is really key to sort of, trigger an effect, down the road? Are they all the same in terms of, what matters?
I think we have to do
All
of them, and not one. Like motivating may not be enough if the barriers continue to be there, and that deters the women. But reaching out to them in the earlier age and convincing them, bringing them into the sector through internship to show that they actually can enjoy and prosper in the sector will be, I think, helpful.
Sounds good. One says you can't fix what you don't see. So how do we accelerate women's entry into the field in particular? Are there specific programs that you heard that are working, or what do you think that, what can be done at the international level as well?
Well, visibility, we have been talking about that. We need to visualize women. We need to be in every single forum, in every single conversation, in every board possible. And that's a matter of that visibility is very, very important, because if you are not seen, you don't exist. Just to change the rules, we need to be part of these activities. So that's something really important.
So I would like to add here, and this has been the conversation that we've been having, and good to see my colleagues from the council here, that there is need for some kind of an aspirational goal. So we are thinking, of visions and how to develop and how to become a hub. So why not a vision for having more women in aviation? And IATA had come up with the aspirational goal of 25% by 2030. We of course have the UN SDG goals. I think ICAO has got a goal that by 2030 we should be 50%. But again, there has to be a smaller quantifiable goals which can be reviewed and which we are able to ask the industry to also take it up, because it has to be a combined effort. It can't be just the Civil Aviation Authority. It has to be the industry which has also to have some kind of a goal in mind. I think that would be a kind of a way of moving forward and working constructively to achieve something by a certain date. So that, I think, at the international level, we definitely need to have an aspirational goal.
Interesting. Anyone else? Well, I'll have another question for you. Could any of you or all of you share how you balance work and life? It's good to encourage women to pursue, but how do you balance it?
Well, I have 3 children. My husband travels, I don't know if more than me or equal. We both travel a lot. His commitment, his organization. My children, they know that mommy is traveling and dad is traveling. And one of them is 8 years, and she's not even worried. If I go by, she's not worried. She's like just relaxed about not having me when I have them. But of course, they know that I'm working, so they have normalized that we are working parents, both of us. And I expect that they will be, their careers, they are going to be following that path. And how I combine is like work, 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 and work. I'm really bad at this. I actually need to spend some more time for myself. It's one of my goals of this year. But, women, as you were mentioning before, we have to sort of show off more, work more, multitask more, and do everything more. Because we always thought that wasn't enough what we did. We need to step up and being recognized. That is very hard, okay? And we all do, and we know that it shouldn't be done, but we naturally do because we were taught like that. So my aspiration now, my lesson for me to be learn and walk my talk is to relax a bit and just to have a little bit of my personal time, which is probably in my generation, and I hope in next generation, it's not going to be like that. We were like the ones going to the jungle, opening up, this field and making it ready for the ones that come in later are going to have it easier. But it's like that, work, like any male in this room is actually the same. So that's for the moment.
And of course, during the pandemic, we all learned that it's possible to somehow find a balance by working from home or figuring it out.
It's working 24 hours
specifically.
from home, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the pandemic all about.
Anyone else would like? Please, Dana.
So I'm a millennial, and
Okay.
there's been a huge push online with millennials that mental health and taking time for yourself is just as important as your career. So for me, I've kind of learned from that, and so when it's not, I try to make it work, life. So the middle part is kind of like work and life kind of mixed together, but I always try to at least have a few hours, a few days of small vacations here and there that I can squeeze through for myself, to treat myself, to maintain emotional balance and everything.
That's good. That is the other generation.
Yeah. Michelle, you wear so many hats. How do you balance?
Well, I think I fail a lot of the times, I have to say. So I generally am a workaholic, and when I'm not working and trying to relax, I feel like I'm forgetting something. So
Yeah.
it's always this constant nag, like, I don't think you're doing the right thing. So I try my best, but sometimes the demands of work exceed the time frame I have, so I have no choice but to stay up, or even if I want to stop, as I'm trying to sleep, it's constantly in my head. So I do fail sometimes, I have to admit. But then sometimes I do value, okay, this time, because I don't get to spend a lot of time with my family, so I have to travel to see them. So that time is very precious for me, because I'm like, no, I'm not going to take time from my family. I barely see them, so I need to allot that for them. So I try to be a little bit rigid with that. So I try. Sometimes I fail, and sometimes I succeed. So it's a work in progress, I have to say.
Elena, Dr. Shefali, you have experience, I'm sure, in this and challenged your challenge as well. So how do you balance?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, it's a challenge, and we must be realistic that behind a successful man, they always say there's a woman. In the same way, Behind a successful man, a woman, there is always not only a man, there's an entire family that's involved, because everybody has to adjust and have to also respect the work that a woman is doing. And think that kind of a societal acceptance is the key to progress of woman. And otherwise, it can't be just a single woman standing out and saying, I can manage everything. So it has to be the entire society accepting it, a father taking pride in what his daughter is doing, a brother taking pride in what his sister is doing. So that, and of course, children taking pride in what their parents do.
Sure, sure. Elaine?
I'm the least qualified in this area. I think we learned from the millennium on the need to focus on. But for me, I'm quite fortunate. I have friends around that remind me that there is life. So I would like to thank the friends for the constant reminder that there's life. But I do enjoy the work, and I find it meaningful and the value adding to what aviation can do for the world. So I'm the least qualified.
Well, friends matter. That's what we learned.
Friends
So now let's take some questions from the audience. Anybody would like to ask a question? State your name and affiliation if you'd like.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Zaina Al-Hijran. I work at Boeing Saudi Arabia. So first of all, thank you so much. Amazing, super inspiring examples. It's a privilege to be here. I have a comment and maybe some insight to discuss. I think you guys, just by the work-life balance you mentioned, is amazing, successful women because you put your energy, a lot of effort, a lot of compromises that you had to make, right? And I think this is one of the issues why women in general, in all industries, not just in aviation, don't end up being in it, so retention, or maybe even succeeding in it because they have to make this compromising decision. And for women, it's hard, right? Lots of women would say, my family is more important, and that's it. Maybe not so with men. Everybody puts a lot of work in. And this, I don't mean it as a criticism. My point here is to say, as you said, behind every man, there's one successful woman. Behind successful women, there's a village to keep her successful. So this is my point, right? Because women, let's be realistic, they have to make much more compromises just because of the nature of women, being a woman, and societal, cultural stereotype upon ourselves, right? Not just others towards us as women. So I would like to ask, I hate, by the way, the word equality. I think equality is one of the most unfair things. I believe in equity, right? And I think equity is the key for women's success in any industry, maybe particularly in aviation. So my question is, when we talk equity, right, it's easier said than done, right? And you talked about, let's play the game together, right? Usually in a game, you come in, or at least you start together on an equal basis, and then you gain and lose as you start playing. So how equitable are we as we go into this field, right? All of us graduate from university at the same time. The stereotypes, how having households that say that you can do it, the media, I think we're getting much better at it, right? Across the world, women can do it. My daughter has the option, she knows she does, but she still picks up the brush and she still wants to put lipstick all the time. It's just the way it is, right? But the question is, how can we show them, right, that you don't have to do as many compromises? How can we really build this equitable environment? And to me, this is just to give you, it needs a lot more investment. It needs a lot of more consideration. It needs, it's just, as you said, it's not just about women. It's about disability. It's about, coming from a disadvantaged economic background. It's the same. It's the same across the board, right? Women is just another dimension of it that need extra equitable consideration. So do you have examples of how success? I mean, I know in Europe, for example, they have more benefits, etc. When you see just maternity leave scale, right? The US is usually always on the very
we don't
bottom.
call it maternity leave anymore. It's like parental leave.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
both are part of it. So
Yeah.
you are putting the both under the same
Exactly.
situation.
Yeah.
Then they can choose as a couple who is going to be doing what. Okay, but at least you give the opportunity to both of them. And at the beginning, many companies, when the father was the one taking the lead, they were like looking, oh, are you? So, and they sort of suffer a little bit the same as women suffer when we were in maternity leave. So it's a question of, and it will take a lot of time and years, but the compromises are like putting a minimum bar in each area I was describing before, like what about the academia? What do we have to do there? What do we have to do in the companies? What do we have to do in the governments? And by putting like this like minimum, like basics that we all work together, we will get to the point. Probably will take a lot of time, maybe even more than the web said. Instead of 135 will be 200. I hope not. But those compromise needs to be written and we all need to adopt it. So we have a women initiative, which is in our website. I'm happy if you want to have a read to it and join it, because we have a minimum balance, and we did that together with many companies at a worldwide level. So they, said, okay, by this year we're going to have in our companies so many women on board. We're going to be, sharing best practices in academia to be able to do things quicker and more effective. We have a plan, but there are many other plans that we should be all of us sharing. But yeah, putting some KPIs is something that we need to.
Right, we have a question here in front.
My name is Osama Al-Kurdi. I'm a businessman from Saudi Arabia. I was very happy to hear what everybody had to say, and it confirms with my experience of women empowerment of Saudi Arabia over the past 20 years. And it's all excellent, it's all good. But I really think something you raised a few minutes ago, I think we need to move from the subjective to the objective. The empowerment of women in Saudi Arabia, and I'm sure many other countries, happened when there was a focus on objectives, when there was an interest from the government directed to the private sector or to any other organization that had to do with the employment of women. And so I would like to maybe in the near future see something beyond women empowerment, beyond gender equality, something that says this is what these countries can do. I think maybe ICAO can do something like this. Put parameters, KPIs for countries regarding women in aviation. And when I say that, you mentioned that women in aviation is what was it you? Up to 50%.
54.
Say again?
54.
54,
But I was
but the
referring to
idea
the
here,
entire...
the idea here is not in general. What I think the objective should be is in very specific jobs. It used to pain me to see, hurt me to see women in the cabin in the plane and not in the cockpit. This is changing. Maybe not in Saudi Arabia, but it's changing around the world. And so what we should do is, under the sponsorship of the ICAO, and I'm judging by, as a businessman, I follow very closely what happens in the World Trade Organization. Very specific objectives. If you don't meet them, you're in trouble. And something like this, I mean, in addition to what Dana said about the long list of things that need to be done, in addition to what everybody said regarding women empowerment, now we need to have very specific objectives on very specific jobs. It's fine for women to be in charge of, employment of women in tourism is high. That's fine. But I would like to see in so many different other, including aircraft maintenance. And these companies are coming up now, and there is a lot of interest in hiring women to do these jobs. Again, move from the subjective to the objective. Thank you.
We have a question in the back. Thank you, Dr. Osama.
Thank you very much. Not so much of a question, but I wanted to share some little experience from the middle of the African continent where I come from. I come from Uganda, and my background is a background of a civil servant, a private practitioner in law, a politician, and eventually a justice of the Court of Appeal, and the Deputy Chief Justice of the country called Uganda. Now, I was also involved as a politician in the process of making our constitution, the national constitution. We realized, like many other countries, we had that problem of a number of groups of people who are actually disadvantaged, either by culture, by practice, or by custom or law. And we provided in the constitution, there is a clause for ensuring, that there is affirmative action, towards directed to those disadvantaged people, and women are one of them. And under that provision, now some enactments have been made by Parliament. I'll give one or two examples. First of all, in the Parliament, because if you went for universal elections, you will definitely find that very few people would vote women to Parliament, even fellow women wouldn't. So we provided that for every district there will be a woman member of Parliament, not a member of Parliament not a woman member of Parliament for women, but a woman member of Parliament for everybody in the district. That enhanced the number of MPs, and that helped also to make their voices heard in the Parliament. The other acts have been made where we say, look, at least 30% of positions of whatever nature shall be ring-fenced for women. And we have made quite a lot of advancement on that. Then we have also developed policies under that kind of climate. Of course, you'll find that in many countries, especially the developing countries, if you let everybody, compete for, say, for university vacancies, places on an equal basis, women will turn out to be disadvantaged. So now, as a policy, there was their marks, points actually, lower for women to enter, and we have proved, it has been proved that after the entry, they actually perform at the same level as men. But at least you make an entry point which is a bit softer so that you get more women coming into the university, and then after that, definitely you are planting seeds for the future. Because by the time they leave university, they are equally as good as men. I am also now the chairman of the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. And I am making it a point to see that women get a fair share of positions there at all levels, managerial and the rest of it. For instance, for the first time, we have had a director general who is a man, but now a deputy director general who is a woman. We have also had, for the first time, a director human resource as a woman. I mean, those are openings that will definitely improve on the status of women in the aviation industry. And we are thinking of ring fencing, quotas like it were, for where only women would be competing, so that they can be, they can come to the organization and the industry, at least through softer entry points. Now
sounds like you can write a book about, Uganda's progress in terms of women empowerment. Right. So,
yeah. Lastly, I want to say, in Uganda, many of us, first of all, I enjoyed to have a lot of votes from women when I was in politics. They were my biggest supporters.
Oh, there we go. There we go. You're popular.
And I hate saying behind every man there is a successful woman. It is besides every successful man, there is a woman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have questions on this side. So we'll start with here. And I'll pass the mic. Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. A very good day for all of you, ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen. My name is Ghassan Gawas, Manager of Airworthiness Engineering Department in GACA. I'd like to share a personal story about women empowerment. I'm married to a lovely wife, Ru'a Gattan. The story is women in sports. So, she was an accountant and gave up after having 4 kids and returned to her passion, sports. Okay. She is now a coach, a certified football coach from the AFC, from the Saudi Federation as well. And she did that after I was beside her, not behind, you know.
Yeah.
This story, what I would say to you is, don't look at solutions in the same sector in the aviation. Look at solutions as a
Entire.
benchmark,
Yeah.
okay, from different. Challenges for women empowerment are all over the place. You can pick and choose the best benchmark. Speaking about my background as an aerospace engineer, engineer mashallah, graduated from a university here in Saudi Arabia, King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals in Dhahran. In 1999, I joined. We were 5 students in aerospace engineering department. Okay, so if you are talking about job opening, you have to consider that early in the beginning in the education. Same thing in the sports. Okay, for girls here in Saudi Arabia, sports are, or physical education is not, until recently, was not in the schools. So same thing for aviation. You have to think about how education programs. Now, not necessary to be a pilot or a rocket engineer, mashallah. Aerospace is a very complicated science. But look at other options.
Sure.
Back to the sport, she is a coach, which is very difficult. But in the same time, she enabled her friends to be either football players, goalkeepers, even fashionists for sports clothes, physiotherapists. So think about benchmarking.
Sure. Thank you very much. Question in the back.
My name is Ahmed Barouthi, and I'm a high school student. So, like all industries, in aviation, there's a major wage gap between men and women. So my question here is, what do you think can be done to fix that issue? Because it would really help other young girls and women to enter the field when they know that they will be earning exactly like their male counterparts.
A quick answer, anybody?
I think the number one important thing is that gender shouldn't matter. It's the merit. How good are you at what you're doing? So whenever anybody that receives a HR, this is a question for HR, whenever you receive the resume, it should be this person is really qualified, this is how much they should make, end of story. It should not be like, oh, male, female. So there should be a complete scratch on what is the person's gender. And maybe if, there can't be a bias built into it. So that's the way I would see it.
Lately, in some places, you cannot even put the age, not even the picture. I don't know if soon we shouldn't put the name.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If your name is very a female
it's
name,
the only
it'll
thing
be
that
obvious.
yeah.
Well, we have time for only, please, one question.
Very short comment and one short question too. Short comment, when you are a woman supporting a man in his career, everybody thinks it's normal. When you are a man supporting a woman in her career, everybody says, wow. So there is a long way to go. That was the short comments. The question, there is some more research, some research being done in the area of labor and the industry, in many industries, that those companies that are more gender balanced are actually achieving better returns, better earnings, better profits than those that are not gender balanced. I was just wondering, and that's the question, do you have any idea of how that works in the particular case of the aviation industry? And are you thinking of pushing for projects in this area to gain a better perspective on that?
Thank you. Any answer? In other words, how do you...
Well, I know that the return is 20%, so I read that, and there is a lot of studies that I'm happy to share with all of you. So, but yeah.
I know for Asia, there was a study done for Asia, just improving, not even parity, improving, you could improve the GDP by 5%. And for Singapore, I think even though we have quite a good gender work equality, but because of the stratification of the job types, and if we manage the stratification well, we could achieve as much as 40% increase.
Wonderful.
In contribution in GDP.
So maybe it doesn't really directly answer your question, but it indicates, and back in India we say that if a woman is educated, she educates the entire family. So that's the importance. So if the woman actually starts working in an organization, she brings what she really does at home, the creativity, because, working, even a housewife is in many ways a very challenging job. So you are doing something which is teamwork, creativity, and perseverance, and as well as perfection. So if you get all those qualities into any business, it has to excel.
Final question from me, under 30 seconds. What is each panelist? What is your message for the next generation of women? How do you encourage them to pursue this field?
Okay, I have a very simple message. You must just believe in yourself. Have the confidence that you can do it, and hard work. Hard work, sincerity, and confidence. They are the three key things which can get you anywhere, including aviation.
There we go. Michelle?
Confidence is very important. Having depth of knowledge is very important for you to have that confidence. And number 3, there are no limits to what you can do. So go for it.
Maribel?
Put a goal and go for it. The rest will come along.
Great.
Yes,
Elaine?
just do it. Believe in that you can do it. Do your best and go for your outcomes.
Yeah.
For me, it's do what you love. And to the parents of those next generation, let them do what they love.
Amazing. Well, this is all the time we have, so please join me in thanking our distinguished panelists for their contribution and insights. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.